Whether it's bending minds as the leader of the X-Men, selling out his friends and colleagues as a corrupt official, or serving as personal physician to a dictator, James McAvoy has incredible range. Omitting voice roles, TV movies, and cameos, James McAvoy's filmography comes out to a very impressive 29 credited roles. Keep watching to see how we've ranked them all from worst to best. Warning, this video contains fast flashing images. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for those with photosensitive epilepsy. German filmmaker Wim Wenders is known for classic arthouse films such as Buena Vista Social Club and Wings of Desire. It is a shame that his 2017 romantic thriller Submergence sinks like a stone to the very bottom of this list. James McAvoy stars as James, an MI6 agent who falls for the deep-sea-obsessed biomathematician Danielle, played by Alicia Vikander.
Hadel, from the Greek Hades, meaning unseen.
Doesn't it mean hell?
Submergence is handsomely shot, but overly long, essentially becoming two different films once James and Danielle leave the scenic French hotel where they meet. Unfortunately, neither story is interesting. James stares at the walls of his cell, Danielle stares at her phone. Rinse and repeat. Ultimately, the lack of chemistry and good dialogue between McAvoy and Vikander dooms the film. Their short tryst isn't believable as an epic love story surviving torture or a near-death experience at the bottom of the ocean. Submergence is one cold fish. While not taking the worst spot on this list, Dark Phoenix was the biggest box office bomb of 2019. The final mainline X-Men film from 20th Century Fox was the second attempt at adapting the beloved Dark Phoenix saga storyline from the Marvel Comics, the first being the disastrous X-Men The Last Stand in 2006. The X-Men engage in a space rescue mission only for Jean Grey, played by Sophie Turner, to bond with the Cosmic Phoenix Force. Magneto and Professor X, portrayed by Michael Fassbender and McAvoy respectively, fight over her fate as mysterious alien invaders plot to take the power of the Dark Phoenix for themselves. X-Men producer, writer, and first-time director Simon Kinberg had originally intended Dark Phoenix to be a two-part epic. However, rewrites resulted in a film that wasn't the space opera fans expected. Combined with weak villains and a seemingly checked-out cast, we're left with a film running on fumes. Despite an uplifting epilogue where Professor X and Magneto reunite and settle their differences with a game of chess, Dark Phoenix is the last gasp of a once mighty franchise. At the start of Victor Frankenstein, Igor, the titular Mad Doctor's hunchback assistant, played by Daniel Radcliffe, tells us that we know this story, so why tell it again? Borrowing characters, visuals, and plot elements from previous adaptations, the only meaningful change in Victor Frankenstein is who is telling the story.
That's the easy part done.
Oh, easy part!
When Frankenstein, played by James McAvoy, meets Igor, he's a circus clown and an amateur doctor. After they save the life of an injured aerialist, they become scientific partners in Victor's dangerous tampering with the forces of life and death. Victor Frankenstein embraces the hidden homoeroticism of the concept of two men trying to create a new life, and it gives the cast plenty of pulpy scenery to chew. But what kind of Frankenstein movie introduces the monster only in the last 15 minutes? Despite McAvoy's ferocious performance, Victor Frankenstein is dead on arrival. McAvoy is no stranger to the horror genre, but his first brush with the dark side of cinema was 2001's The Pool, one of the countless slasher movies made in the wake of Scream. This unimaginative flick is notable only for featuring McAvoy and Isla Fisher as two teenagers who meet the wrong end of a machete. Set in Prague, The Pool follows a group of international students eager to make one last splash before graduation when they are attacked by a killer in a skull mask. The Pool is a by-the-numbers slasher. No one will be surprised when the characters split away from the group just so they can die quicker, or the killer's deeply misogynistic motivation. You know The Pool has nothing original to say when it includes the actual line, "I know what you did last summer." M. Night Shyamalan's 2000 feature Unbreakable has developed a massive cult following for its original take on the superhero formula. 16 years after its premiere, fans were excited when the ending to Shyamalan's feature film Split revealed that the movie was a secret sequel. Shyamalan completed his trilogy with 2019's Glass, bringing together each film's protagonist for the first time.
Finish this.
in front of the world.
In the 19 years between Unbreakable and Glass, superhero narratives have gone from nerdy niche to blockbuster fodder. Shyamalan subverts the genre in Glass, making a superhero film that feels deliberately underwhelming, even alienating to its audience. Ultimately, whatever statement the film was trying to make about superheroes becomes pointless. As David Ehrlich said in his film review for IndieWire, the trouble with Glass is that its mildly intriguing metatextual narrative is so much richer and more compelling than the asinine story that Shyamalan tells on its surface. Although many, including Shyamalan, were impressed with McAvoy's performance, that alone couldn't rescue the film. My Son gives James McAvoy one of the most challenging roles of his career as a father investigating the disappearance of his young son. He was also the only actor on the set of the 2021 mystery thriller not given a script, left up to largely improvise his performance, which created a unique experience where the audience uncovers clues and deciphers the mystery at the same time the actor does. Director-co-writer Christian Carillon adapted My Son from his 2017 French film of the same name, which would give one hope that he had ironed out the kinks of such an unusual production. McAvoy gives a naturalistic performance, capturing a father's confusion, anxiety, and rage, but the film doesn't have much to offer audiences aside from the central gimmick. My Son could have been groundbreaking, but it's only conventional. It's the early 1980s, and McAvoy's Professor X dresses like he's on Miami Vice as he instructs a new class of super students. Meanwhile, the ancient mutant En Sabanur, played by Oscar Isaac under pounds of blue makeup, seeks to rule the world.
I have returned.
X-Men Apocalypse has its charms, such as when Evan Peters' Quicksilver returns for a rescue scene set to the music by the band Eurythmics, but Bryan Singer's final film in the franchise he launched in 2000 is uneven and overstuffed. Even die-hard X-Men fans will groan at the film's many detours, including the obligatory Wolverine cameo. Somehow, Holocaust survivor Magneto destroying Auschwitz out of grief and rage is in the same movie with Cody Smith-McPhee's Nightcrawler wearing Michael Jackson's jacket from Thriller. They may save the world, but for the X-Men, this film is a sign of the end times. Welcome to the Punch is a standard shoot-'em-up starring McAvoy as Max Lewinsky, a cop still dealing with the effects of being shot by career criminal Jacob Sternwood, played by Mark Strong. Several shootouts follow, all leading to a final confrontation at the container yard known as the Punch. McAvoy and Strong are excellent foils to one another, but their sparks aren't enough to light up this derivative cops and robbers movie. It's a shame, because one wonders what the two leads could have done with a more interesting script. Welcome to the Punch is a decent time waster for action junkies, but not much else. Also released under the title Rory O'Shea Was Here, the 2004 Irish dramedy Inside I'm Dancing stars McAvoy as the titular Rory O'Shea, an irrepressible rebel who lives with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. He befriends the introverted Michael, played by Stephen Robertson, who has cerebral palsy. But this being a kind of inspirational film, tragedy inevitably strikes. 18 years after its release, Inside I'm Dancing deserves scrutiny for casting two able-bodied actors as the disabled, wheelchair-using Rory and Michael. As Andrew Paul Rang, a disabled writer, said of the issue in Forbes, what to some viewers seemed to be deeply empathetic and almost athletic feats of acting, to others, in particular many actual disabled people, seem more like showboating and mockery. The film attempts to address ableism in Ireland, including the difficulty of finding affordable, accessible housing, but Inside I'm Dancing undermines its message with problematic casting and a sappy, stereotypical story. Christina Ricci plays the titular Penelope, a young woman born with a pig snout as a result of a witch's curse. With her snout hidden under a colorful scarf, she falls for McAvoy's Johnny Marsh, a red-blooded gambler, while her wealthy parents arrange for a rich suitor to supposedly break the curse.
God! You licked me.
Edward, what? Don't lick Max.
Penelope is an eccentric fairy tale that helped cement McAvoy's status as a romantic lead. Viewers watching today will be starstruck by the supporting cast, which includes Catherine O'Hara, Richard E. Grant, Reese Witherspoon, and Peter Dinklage. The actors gamely play along with the film's quirky plot and uplifting final message about self-confidence, but there may be a limit to how many pig jokes they can make. Robert Redford's 2010 period drama, The Conspirator, explores a little-known chapter of American history, the trial of Mary Surratt, who is played by Robin Wright. Mary's son John was one of the conspirators behind President Abraham Lincoln's assassination, and because Mary owned the boarding house where John and his accomplices gathered, she was also charged as a conspirator.
You were one of Lincoln's pallbearers too. How can you represent her?
She's entitled to a defense, Freddie. So I shall defend her.
In The Conspirator, McAvoy's Frederick Aiken is a lawyer who doesn't want to defend Surratt in court. She is a proud Southerner, and he was injured fighting for the Union in the Civil War. But after meeting Mary and her daughter, Anna, played by Evan Rachel Wood, he becomes convinced of her innocence. It isn't often that a movie based on true events has a red carpet screening at the scene of the crime, but The Conspirator was shown at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., the site of Lincoln's assassination. A bold choice, but one that reflects the overall staginess of a well-acted, but sometimes boring film. A perfect movie for high school history teachers to show their students, and sometimes that's enough. Becoming Jane joyfully mixes fact and fiction to tell the story of novelist Jane Austen, played by Anne Hathaway, and her brief love affair with McAvoy's Tom Lefroy, an Irish lawyer. Set before she wrote her groundbreaking novels, Austen is living in the country. Her life is upended by the arrival of Lefroy, and in true romantic novel fashion, sparks fly. The chemistry between Hathaway and McAvoy carries this light but bittersweet film, particularly in a dance sequence full of smoldering romantic tension. Perfect scenery and beautifully detailed costumes add to the film's elegance. Watching it is like having tea on a lovely Sunday morning. Dedicated Austen fans may object to Becoming Jane favoring a fictionalized love story over her literary achievements, but the film makes an argument for Lefroy inspiring Mr. Darcy, the romantic hero of Austen's Pride and Prejudice. They don't make rom-coms like 2004's Wimbledon anymore. The movie stars Paul Bettany as Peter, an aging British tennis pro who intends to retire after the upcoming Wimbledon tournament. An unexpected romance with vivacious rising star Lizzie, played by Kirsten Dunst, reignites his love for the sport. However, her father, played by Sam Neill, sees him as a distraction that could ruin her career. In one of his early supporting roles, James McAvoy delivers comic relief as Carl, Peter's cyclist brother who bets against his games.
Hold on. Isn't he playing your brother?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, but curiously, I'm not.
Wimbledon is as pleasant and uneventful as a warm bath, and Bettany and Dunst are charming as two pretty blonde people who fall in love. It doesn't break the mold, but in an era where mainstream, theatrically released rom-coms are an endangered species, Wimbledon becomes something special. It was the horror blockbuster of 2017, and currently ranks as the highest-grossing movie based on a Stephen King novel. Telling the story of Derry, Maine, the home of the otherworldly clown Pennywise and the Losers Club who try to destroy it, director Andy Muschietti chose to adapt the book in two parts. It, Chapter 2, picks up with the adult characters 27 years after the first film.
What?
Hush, I'm Polly, moron.
Oh, thanks.
James McAvoy inherited the role of Bill, the leader of the Losers Club, and now a successful horror novelist. He reunites with his friends, including Jessica Chastain's Bev and Bill Hader's Richie, to perform the ritual of Chud and end Pennywise's threat forever. It, Chapter 2, is dragged down by a bloated 169-minute runtime and a plot overflowing with aggravating detours. While it has a strong cast and scary surprises, It, Chapter 2 can't quite recapture its childhood glory. Based on Evelyn Waugh's 1930 novel, Vile Bodies, Stephen Fry's 2003 film, Bright Young Things, chronicles the lives of the idle rich as they delve into parties, alcohol, and sex. Adam, played by Stephen Campbell Moore, wants to marry social climber Nina, portrayed by Emily Mortimer. Unfortunately, customs officers confiscate the novel he has staked their future on, calling it pornography. McAvoy plays the aristocratic and bohemian Lord Simon Balcam, a small but significant character, as he is the face behind Mr. Chatterbox, London's most notorious scandal column. Simon's star quickly falls when he's caught crashing the wrong party and, facing social ruin, commits suicide. Though he exits at the halfway mark, McAvoy's presence lingers over the film, as Adam only inherits the Mr. Chatterbox column through Simon's death. Beneath the glitz and glamour of bright young things, there lurks a terrible human cost. As an actor, James McAvoy is not afraid of taking on unusual or challenging roles. The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby is 3 films in one, chronicling the decaying marriage between McAvoy's Connor and his wife Eleanor, played by Jessica Chastain. The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, her, and The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, him, tell the same story from each point of view. A fight between Connor and Eleanor in one film could have an entirely new context in the other, creating a unique viewing experience. Director Ned Benson also pieced him and her into a single film, subtitled Them, that tells Connor and Eleanor's stories in a single linear timeline. Them is the most conventional of the 3, with Jason Bailey noting its incompleteness for Flavor Wire. It's a very good film, but throughout it, its phantom limbs tingle, hinting that it was something much more special before its Frankenstein job. What could have been a novelty project emerges as a deep drama about 2 people who come together, come apart, and maybe come together again. For those who can commit to multiple movies, be prepared for a rewarding experience. No one can say that 2013's Filth doesn't live up to its title. McAvoy stars as Bruce Robertson, a corrupt cop who brings pain and misery wherever he goes. When his usual vices aren't enough, Bruce tramples his way through Edinburgh, his mental state fracturing into disturbing hallucinations, and things only get worse from there.
I used to be a good person.
Yeah, I heard that.
Filth is an endurance test. Sprung from the mind of Irvin Welsh, the author of Trainspotting, the film is manic, self-indulgent, raw, and savage. If the audience isn't hiding behind their hands, they won't be able to take their eyes off James McAvoy. In a performance completely stripped of vanity, McAvoy plunges into the darkest parts of Bruce's soul, revealing the terrible losses that sent him into a self-destructive spiral. Lest the viewer thinks Filth has gone soft, it saves the cruelest joke for the very last scene. McAvoy's Simon is a fine art auctioneer in Danny Boyle's 2013 feature Trance, who believes that art is not comparable to human lives. The human wreckage left in the wake of a botched art heist seems to prove him wrong. In this wild psychological thriller, Simon somehow engineers a switch of a priceless Goya painting before it's stolen, but after getting a nasty blow on the head during the heist, he can't remember what he did with the original. Oh yes, Trance is an amnesia movie. From Spellbound to Memento, amnesia is an advantage to psychological thrillers, especially ones about how the slipperiness of memory shapes our identities. Simon seeks out the hypnotherapist Elizabeth, played by Rosario Dawson, to unblock his memory. But when she learns what he's trying to find, she wants a piece of the action. But what else is Simon hiding in the depths of his mind? Boyle's film is full of pulpy, nightmarish excess, to the point where reality seems to bend, rewriting memories and personalities at will. Did you ever dream about waking up one day and finding out that you're not an ordinary Joe working in a cubicle, that you're the lost heir to a secret fraternity of rich, beautiful assassins, and now you can do anything you want? This geeky power fantasy comes alive in 2008's Wanted. Loosely based on the comic series of the same name by Mark Miller and J.G. Jones, Wanted shifts away from the comic's nihilistic tone and cheap shocks, relying much more on kinetic escapism. McAvoy, in a role originally modeled after the rapper Eminem, gets the action movie equivalent of a Cinderella makeover. He seamlessly transforms from a sweaty, anxious schlub into a leather jacket-wearing, dual-wielding elite assassin. Wanted also gave McAvoy and future Guardian of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt their first roles in a comic book movie, making it even more hilarious when Wesley slams a keyboard into his obnoxious coworker's face. The Last Station accomplishes a rare feat. It spins a vital, engaging film around the subject of copyright law. The 2009 feature is set in 1910, focusing on the final months of iconic Russian author Leo Tolstoy, played by the late, great Christopher Plummer. Tolstoy preaches ideals such as pacifism and the abolishment of private property, and considers signing a new will that would put all of his writings in the public domain. However, his wife Sophia, portrayed by Helen Mirren, who bore him 13 children, fears that he is robbing his family of their rightful inheritance.
Despite good cause for it, I have never stopped loving you.
Of course.
But God knows you don't make it easy.
Woven into this family conflict is Tolstoy's private secretary, Valentin, played by McAvoy. Young and idealistic, and prone to sneezing fits, Valentin realizes that his literary idol is not a god, but a flawed man who doesn't always practice what he preaches. Helen Mirren owns the film with her explosive performance as Sophia, a woman who sees straight through Tolstoy's suck-ups and bristles at her husband's betrayal. 2003's Bollywood Queen was the first time James McAvoy stepped into the role of Romeo in a modern reimagining of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, but not the last. Thankfully, he isn't playing a cartoon gnome here. He's Jay, a guitar-strumming lad from Somerset who falls in love with Gina, played by Priya Kalidas, a British Indian girl who loves Bollywood musicals. Bollywood Queen is bright and splashy fun. Given its inspiration, it's not a shock when characters start dancing and bursting into songs both in Hindi and English. Kalidas and McAvoy are cute as the couple caught in a clash between two very different families. Just try to resist their meet cute when their love at first sight is so powerful that they both begin to levitate. Based on the first installment of C.S. Lewis's beloved children's fantasy novels, 2005's The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe follow the four Pevensey children as they evacuate London during the Blitz in World War II. When they travel to a countryside mansion containing a mysterious wardrobe, the Pevensey clan are transported to a magical world overtaken by the White Witch, played by a chilly and terrifying Tilda Swinton, and ultimately join the fight for the fate of Narnia.
Every stick and stone you see, every icicle, is Narnia.
James McAvoy plays Mr. Tumnus, a kind-hearted faun in a red scarf. It's a role that's so memorable that McAvoy reprised it in 2019 for a Saturday Night Live skit. McAvoy gives Tumnus a gentle charm in his scenes with Lucy Pevensey, who is played by Georgie Henley in her first on-screen role. His performance gives us the first signs of warmth in this strange world condemned to eternal winter. Split is M. Night Shyamalan's 2016 take on the supervillain origin story, combining Hitchcockian suspense with old-fashioned exploitation movie grit. Split is about McAvoy's Kevin Wendell Crumb, a man struggling with dissociative identity disorder and 23 alternate personalities vying for control of his body. This psychological thriller is a spectacular showcase of James McAvoy's acting abilities and would arguably not work without him at its center. McAvoy must play 8 distinct personalities with different ages, speech patterns, and mannerisms with only minimal costume changes, and he rises to the challenge. A major point of concern, however, is how Split portrays dissociative identity disorder. Mental health professionals and persons with DID criticized the film upon its release for villainizing mental illness. So viewers should keep that in mind, given Kevin's portrayal as someone dangerous and violent. Though his capability to crawl up walls, at least, pushes Split into the realm of pure fantasy. Charlize Theron goes straight for the jugular with her stiletto heel in Atomic Blonde. This 2017 spy thriller stars Theron as Lorraine, an MI6 agent with an attitude as icy as her white blonde bob. Lorraine is sent to recover a microfilm list of every active British agent in Cold War Berlin. There, she becomes entangled with McAvoy's Percival, a crooked MI6 agent who may or may not be the KGB spy codenamed Satchel.
Don't shoot, I've got to shoot.
Atomic Blonde has all the ingredients of a classic spy film. Stolen microfilm, car chases through European cities, double and triple crosses, and even an alluring French agent played by Sofia Boutella. Theron is fearless, and at this point in his career, James McAvoy has perfected the role of the fire-eyed scoundrel. John Wick director David Leitch brings his neon-soaked, bloody-knuckled magic to the film, including an intense 10-minute, single-take fight scene that ends with an escape set to a flock of seagulls. The style gives Atomic Blonde its substance. 2007's Atonement is as beautiful as it is devastating. What begins as a story about the forbidden love between working-class Robbie Turner and wealthy Cecilia Tallis, played by McAvoy and Keira Knightley, transforms itself into something greater, a meditation on war, love, and, yes, atonement. Knightley and McAvoy are perfect as the thwarted lovers, conveying a lifetime of desire in every small glance and hidden touch. In what is arguably his greatest performance as a romantic lead, McAvoy portrays a man who carries a memory of love from the once idyllic Tallis estates to the devastated shores of Dunkirk. Atonement also delivered him a much-deserved Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor. Fox's X-Men films were in trouble following the double disappointments of X-Men: The Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine. But, in true X-Men fashion, it took a trip to the past to save their future. Matthew Vaughn's 2011 feature X-Men First Class was a soft reboot for the struggling series, taking the team back to the 1960s, the era in which Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the comics. In the months before the Cuban Missile Crisis, Fassbender's Eric Lenscher is a metal-manipulating Nazi hunter, and Charles Xavier is a groovy telepath and academic. When the two men meet, their lives and the world are changed forever. McAvoy and Fassbender lead the X-Men franchise into a new era and form the emotional core of the 4 prequel movies. The brutal dictatorship of Ugandan President Idi Amin is viewed through a stranger's eyes in 2006's The Last King of Scotland. James McAvoy plays fictional Scottish doctor Nicholas Garrigan, who travels to Uganda in the 1970s for medical missionary work. While there, he inadvertently charms his way into becoming the personal physician and confidant of the brutal and unpredictable Amin, played by Forrest Whitaker in his Academy Award-winning performance. Director Kevin MacDonald brings his experience as a documentarian into The Last King of Scotland, giving it a hazy, discomforting sense of reality. Whitaker is a towering presence, and the Sydney Morning Herald commented on McAvoy's turn as Garrigan, stating, "McAvoy is dark and wiry and displays a nervy egocentricity. That he's not particularly likable does no damage to the film. On the contrary, it helps to explain why he should be so susceptible to Amin's flattery." Starter for 10 is an unquestionably British coming-of-age story. McAvoy is Brian, a floppy-haired university student in the 1980s who loves the television quiz show University Challenge. While trying to impress his University Challenge team, Brian's love triangle with a flashy blonde and a feisty brunette, played by Alice Eve and Rebecca Hall respectively, may be too much of a distraction.
This man has been sent from the offices of University Challenge!
The film offers its fair share of 80s nostalgia. New Order and Kate Bush are on the soundtrack after all, but McAvoy's winning performance as a would-be trivia champ gives Starter for 10 its vitality. Prepare to be blindsided by how funny this film is. Where else can you see James McAvoy literally butt heads with Benedict Cumberbatch and knock himself out? The X-Men film series arguably achieved its greatest success with the 2014 time-traveling epic X-Men: Days of Future Past. Inspired by Chris Claremont and John Byrne's comic story of the same name, which has been continually ranked amongst the best X-Men storylines, the film also saw the return of director Bryan Singer to the franchise he departed after X2: X-Men United. In the not-so-distant future, civilization is overrun by Sentinels, advanced robots designed to hunt down mutants. The X-Men have one last plan to save the world: send Wolverine's mind back in time to his younger body. Once he's there, he can reunite McAvoy's Professor X and Fassbender's Magneto, and stop Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique from committing the assassination that will launch the Sentinels. X-Men: Days of Future Past combines mutants, machines, and the plots of a 70s political thriller to produce one of the best films in the superhero genre. Amid the star-studded cast featuring original X-Men cast members and new faces, there is one standout performance that completely reinvents a role. The Atlantic's review put it best. Writing, McAvoy is the real star of the show. Put aside the time travel, giant robots, and mutant angst, X-Men: Days of Future Past is the story of one man learning to hope again. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and stars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.